Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Engage Church. We're so glad that you are here this morning. It's so good to see you guys. Would you guys please stand with us as we start our service from singing?
I was buried beneath my shame. Who could carry that kind of weight? It was my tomb till I met you. I was breathing but not alive. All my failures I tried to hide. It was my tomb till I met you. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. Now your mercy has saved my soul. Now your freedom is all that I know. The old man knew Jesus and I met you. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. I needed rescue, my sin was heavy, but chains break at the weight of your glory. I needed shelter, I was an orphan. Now you call me a citizen of heaven. When I was broken, you were my healer. Now your love is the air that I'm breathing. I have a future, my eyes are open, 'cause when you call my name, I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. When my hope and strength is gone, you're the one who calls me on. You are the light, you are the fire that's in my soul. Oh, your resurrection power burns like fire in my heart. When waters rise, I lift my eyes up to your throne. We are more than conquerors through Christ. You have victorious. Nothing is impossible. Every chain is breakable. With you, we are victorious. You are stronger than our hearts. Victorious. And nothing is impossible. Every chain is breakable. With you, we are victorious. And you are stronger than our hearts. You are greater than the dark. With you, we are victorious. And we are more than conquerors through Christ. You have overcome this world, this life. We will not bow to sin or to shame. We are defiant in your name. You are the fire that cannot be tamed. You are the power in our veins, our Lord, our God. And we are more than conquerors through Christ. You have overcome this world, this life. We will not bow to sin or to shame. We are defiant in your name. You are the fire that cannot be tamed. You are the power in our veins, our Lord, our God, our conqueror. Alone in my sorrow and dead in my sin, lost without hope with no place to begin. Your love made a way to let mercy come in. When death was arrested and my life began, ash was redeemed, only beauty remains. My orphan heart was given a name. My mourning grew quiet, my feet rose to dance. When death was arrested and my life began, washes over me. You have made me new. Now life begins with you. It's your endless love pouring down on us. You have made us new. Now life begins with you. Released from my chains, I'm a prisoner no more. My shame was a ransom.
ransom my debt, and he called me his friend. When death was arrested and my life began. Oh, your grace so free washes over me. You have made me new. Now life begins with you. It's your endless love pouring down on us. Our Savior displayed on a criminal's cross. Darkness rejoiced as though heaven had lost. But then Jesus arose with our freedom in hands. That's when death was arrested and my life began. So free washes over me. You have made me new. Now life begins with you. It's your endless love pouring down on us. You have made us new. Now life begins with you. Oh, we're free, free, forever we're free. Come join the song of all the redeemed. Yes, we're free, free, forever, amen. When death was arrested and my life began. Oh, we're free, free, forever we're free. Come join the song of all the redeemed. Yes, we're free, free, forever, amen. When death was arrested and my life began. When death was arrested and my life began. When death was arrested and my life began.
Before I spoke a word, you singing over me. You have been so, so good to me. Before I took my breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so, so kind to me. And all the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, and chases me down by Siloam, found needs to 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still you gave yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. felt no word. You paid it all to me. You have been so, so kind to me. Don't be overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights it like found leads to 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. No shadow won't light up, mount you won't climb up, coming after me. Snow wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. No shadow won't light up, mount you won't climb up, coming after me. So you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. So shadow won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. So you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. No, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights it, I'm found, leads to 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still, you gave yourself away. Don't the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Don't the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves to 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. Don't the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God.
God, we just thank you for your overwhelming, your never-ending love. God, we thank you for this time of worship. And as we sing these songs of praise to you, as we sing these songs of worship to you, that they bring honor to your name, that they bring a smile to your face. Because, God, we are overwhelmed by your love. God, we give all our praise to you. We give all to you. Praise to you. And friends, you can have a seat as we prepare for the message this morning.
Welcome to Engage Church. Whether you're joining us online, whether you're joining us on TV, at our Mandan campus, or in Dickinson, we are so glad to be able to join together and celebrate together today. We continue our series called Squad Goals. You know, I've probably said this 1,000 times in my life. Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. As a matter of fact, why don't you say that with me? Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. Andy Stanley, who's a pastor in Atlanta, he actually says it this way: your friends will determine the quality and the direction of your life. That's why we're in this series titled Squad Goals. We're talking about our squads and the impact that they have on our lives. Solomon actually said it this way in the book of Proverbs. He said, walk with the wise. Now, I asked people on social media this week to finish that sentence, and here were some of the comments. Walk with the wise and stumble with the stupid. That's an interesting take. Walk with the wise and learn their ways. Walk with the wise and it'll be a quiet walk. I like that one. Walk with the wise and take notes. That's good. This one might be my favorite, though. Walk with the wise and hire all of them you can. Now, that is smart. Solomon actually finished it this way. He said, walk with the wise and become wise. We often stop there because it sounds good. But he told us actually what would happen if we did the opposite of walk with the wise. He continued, he said, for a companion of fools suffers harm. That's like Squad Rules 101. If your squad is full of fools, people who act like fools, people who do foolish things eventually, maybe not the first time, but eventually you will suffer harm because of your squad and their choices. And so we have these great instructions, good guidance, but the truth is, many of us find ourselves stuck on social media, stuck in bad squads, stuck wishing we had somehow a better squad. It's actually a form of poverty. Sociologists talk about the 3 different types of poverty, and we all, of course, know about material poverty, but there's also spiritual poverty and relational poverty. Here at Engage, we've now done 2 mission trips over the last year and a half, and we're headed again in July for our 3rd time to Mexico. Now, these people that we're ministering to live in absolute poverty. I mean, they sleep on a dirt floor. It's literally a shack built of pallets and cardboard and plastic that they can find. Often the kids can't go to school. It is a horrible just cycle of poverty. That's material poverty. They have no bathroom. They dig a hole. They build a little plastic shack around it. No running water. If you've ever done anything like what we do, we go there and in the course of a few days you build a home and we help these people get their kids up off the dirt floor into a healthier environment, a place where they can function. I really challenge you. Check it out, engagechurch.net/missions, to find out more about what we do and maybe even sign an interest form where you might be able to go in the future. Material poverty like that is horrible. But many sociologists would say that relational poverty is even worse. The people who live in material poverty must rely on each other. They have support because they have no choice. In America, we don't live in material poverty, but we are often so self-sufficient, we don't need anyone to survive, and it's just not healthy. So we have material possessions galore, but we often have relational poverty. The truth that we're going to explore today about our squads is this: you may be only one friend away. One friend away from what? From finding what you really desire? From finding your destiny? From changing the course of your life? Not only have I seen it again and again in my own life, in people that I come into contact with and experience with, but we also see it over and over again in the Bible. Let's start today by looking at the Apostle Paul. The trajectory of his life, his plans were all changed with one friendship. Acts chapter 9 says this: when he came to Jerusalem, he tried to join the disciples, but they were all afraid of him, not believing that he really was a disciple. So what does that mean? Why were the disciples afraid of Paul? Well, the disciples were those who were followers of Jesus. And you need to know that Paul was Paul, but before he was Paul, he was actually Saul. Saul was a persecutor of Christians, like officially, like it was his job basically. He persecuted Christians, he killed them in order to stop this new religion called the Christians, or the Way they were sometimes called. They didn't want it to grow because it was taking power away from those who didn't believe in Jesus. And so that was Saul. That's who Saul was. But now, after Saul had an encounter with Jesus and he becomes Paul, he has been given a new name. He realizes that Jesus is real. And Paul is now a Christian. And he's like, I want to preach. I want to tell others about how wrong I was and how right Jesus is. It's a great course correction of his life. But of course, rightly so, the disciples don't trust him. I mean, how could they? Last week, Saul would have killed them, and now Paul, same guy, different name, wants to be in their group. Is he trying to be like a Trojan horse or something? Is he trying to find out who we all are so he can kill us? I mean, what was his goal? What was his motivation? But get this. One friend can make such a difference. We find it in Acts 9:27. But Barnabas took him and brought him to the disciples. And get this, Barnabas, who is a follower of Jesus, puts his own credibility, his own decision on the line, his own reputation, when he tells them about now Paul. So Barnabas tells how Saul was changed. He had a change of heart. He saw the Lord, and now Saul is no longer Saul, he's Paul. And he's preaching about Jesus instead of what he was doing, which was persecuting and killing Christians. And the Bible tells us that Saul, now Paul, after this, was able to stay in Jerusalem. And verse 28 is great. Speaking boldly in the name of the Lord. So what happened? What changed? God used one friend, and his name was Barnabas, to change the course of Paul's destiny and his future, his mission, his passion. He needed somebody to support him, and it was Barnabas. And Paul is the guy who wrote most of the New Testament that we have. That's the portion of the Bible that's after Jesus' birth, the last 27 books. Barnabas actually has impacted me greatly because Paul's writings, especially his ones from to the church in Ephesus, which we call Ephesians, and Galatians, and Philippians, and others, those books of the Bible are some of the ones that I love to read the most. I read them every year. God used one friend, Barnabas, to change Paul's destiny. And the same could be true for each of us. We may be one friend away from changing our destiny. Or what if we are the friend who changes someone else's destiny by what we can do in their lives? About 3 years ago, I was sitting in a leadership training at Eaglebrook Church in Minnesota. It's a large church. And I've attended there. I've been involved in a lot of their trainings. And our church, Engaged Church, is actually a part of the Eaglebrook Association, which means it's just a group of like-minded churches who work together. It's churches who really care about reaching our communities for Christ. And I was sitting in one of their trainings with Dale Peterson and he was telling us about, he was telling us about how they were starting to have these campuses pop up around with people just doing video from their church, from Eaglebrook Church. And I'm like, you kind of got to be kidding. It kind of rocked my brain. I'm like, a video campus. Would anybody really like a video campus? Is that even possible? And do you know, if it wasn't for that conversation and what Dale was able to speak and what he was able to teach us and the seed that he planted in me, I don't know if our new Dickinson campus would even be a reality today. It's a huge reality for us. One friend away, one inspiration can change a direction, can change a future. And just like Dale planted that seed in me, one friend can change your destiny, just like Barnabas did for Paul. Or you can change someone else's. I'd actually like us to spend the rest of our time today looking at King David. Because he didn't have one or two. He had 3 different types of friends that made a huge impact in his life. And I think that David's friends, the people that God used to be part of David's squad, can teach us about what we need in our squad. The first of David's squad is this. We all need a squad who makes us better. It's something that every single one of us needs. Now, let me just tell you the story so you understand. There was a king, and his name was Saul. Now, it's a different Saul than I talked about a few minutes ago. This is the Old Testament, before Jesus, many hundreds of years before. And so we have King Saul, but because of his choices, God was no longer in favor of Saul. He had rejected Saul as the king because Saul was no longer following God. And God had a man named Samuel who was a prophet. That just means he was someone who kind of speaks for God, almost like a pastor would or a preacher. And God was helping Samuel to identify who is it that would be the new king to replace Saul. And Samuel went to the home of a man named Jesse to look at his sons because God had said that it would be one of Jesse's sons who would be the new king. And so Samuel looks at this son and he says, oh no, this son is too tall. He looks at another son. He's like, nope, this one won't work. He looks at another son. And he's like, surely this is him. And God speaks to him somehow and says, nope, this is not the new king. They go through all of the sons. And Samuel is like, it has to be one of these. But God doesn't confirm that it's any one of them. And he's like, God, what are you doing? These are all of Jesse's sons. And God responds in this way to Samuel. We find it in 1 Samuel chapter 16 and verse 7. The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. And God rejects every one of Jesse's sons, except the son who is too young, and he's out tending the sheep. And so they get David, who is too young. He was out tending the sheep. They bring him in, and this is what it says. Then the Lord said, rise and anoint him. This is the one. It's really interesting that David's own father didn't even consider that David could be the one. They didn't even call him in from the field. No one saw in David that he could be the next king. He was just overlooked. He was overshadowed by his bigger and stronger and more experienced brothers. He wasn't even considered. He was just an afterthought. But God allowed Samuel to see something in David that no one else could see. And because of that, Samuel lifted up David to a new point, and he helped him get better in a way that literally changed the course and destiny of David's life. And here's the reality for almost every single one of us. Our friends are who we hang with. The friends of friends, neighbors that we don't choose, coworkers that we don't choose for the most part, it's happenstance. The person who sits next to you in math class, I mean, maybe it's accidental or maybe it's alphabetical, right? So I want to ask you, does your squad make you better? The people you get to choose, the people you hang around with, because you could be just one friend away from changing the course of your destiny. Notice that David didn't know Samuel before that moment. God orchestrated it, but it's a great point. You never know when your moment may come. I mean, what if David had just stayed in the field? What if David had refused to come into the house to meet Samuel? I think in this case, Samuel and David, it was their first meeting. But we also can look for situations and people that can make us better and people that we can make better. If you've been around here for very long, you might know that I play racquetball a lot. I'm in a league a couple of times a year. But a few years ago when I started playing in leagues, I started at the bronze level, which is the lowest level. I quickly realized that I had a lot to learn. I mean, I knew I had a lot to learn. My friend Sean used to beat me about 100 games to maybe 2 or 3 that I won. It was bad. But anyway, so during this, when I got started a few years ago, I would schedule an extra game here or there with some of the really good guys, and they'd beat me like 15-1 and 15-3, but they taught me and they schooled me and they wiped the court with me but at the same time they helped me to learn and get better. Do you have someone in your life that is helping you get better? No, I'm not saying better at racquetball, but at the things that matter most. Do you hang around with someone who has a bad marriage? It's not going to help your marriage improve if you do. I mean, this reality impacts every area of our lives, our physical health, our financial health. Dave Ramsey says that your financial situation will be the average of the 10 people you spend the most time with. It's not only what will make you better, but how can you make others better? How can you be that one friend who makes someone else better? Proverbs 27 says, as iron sharpens iron, so a friend sharpens a friend. I challenge you today, be the friend who sharpens someone else and find a squad that sharpens you. It's great wisdom. But David had a second friend. His name was Jonathan, and they were best friends. But Jonathan helped David in a really, really important way. You need a squad that helps you find spiritual strength. David is anointed to be king, and he fights in a battle. He becomes many battles, actually. He becomes a war hero, and the women start to take notice of David. Matter of fact, they start to dance, and they start to sing songs about David. I mean, you know you have hit a new level when the women start dancing and singing about you, right? The women come to meet the men when they come back from battle, and the Bible tells us this in 1 Samuel 18:7. As they danced, they sang, Saul has slain his thousands, and David his tens of thousands. I would just really like to know what it's going to take for me to get my wife to sing and dance when I come home one night. I mean, wouldn't that be awesome? That'd be great. That's what was happening for David, only it wasn't his wife, it was a bunch of women. But can you imagine? David isn't even king yet. Saul is still the king, and this makes him furious. And now he wants to kill David. And this is what we read in 1 Samuel 23. While David was at Horesh in the desert of Ziph, he learned that Saul had come out to take his life. And Saul's son Jonathan went to David at Horesh and helped him find strength in God. Notice what Jonathan did for David. He helped him find strength in God. Every single one of us, we need friends. We need a squad who will help us find spiritual strength. Because in those moments, it's easy to do something stupid. Every single one of us. You know, it's so easy to make a life-altering mistake. It's easy to take matters into our own hands instead of waiting on God. It's easy to quit when we think we're not making a difference. It's easy to give up when we run low on spiritual strength. And we need people. We need a squad to be there, to lift us up, to encourage us. You know, when I was pastoring in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, it was almost 15 years ago. Now we just had a couple of rough situations with people and situations that had turned difficult. And I was meeting with the church board, kind of the elders of the church, the people who helped to orchestrate things. And I knew it was going to be a pretty challenging meeting. We had to make some hard decisions. And my staff guys, the guys that work for me, just knew that it had really taken a toll on me and it had been a difficult time. And so even though they couldn't go to the meeting, they showed up there early so that when I got to my office to grab my stuff and go to the meeting, they were there. And I'm like, why are you guys here? You can't go to the meeting. And they said to me, Chip, we're here for you. We've got your back. We believe in you. And they said, while you're in the meeting, we're going to be here and we're going to be praying for you. Spiritual strength. They provided, they helped me to have spiritual strength in that difficult day. We all need that. Someone who supports us like Jonathan did for David. We need a squad who helps us find spiritual strength. But you also need a friend who provides spiritual strength for others. How can you be that for someone else? Showing up at the lowest time of their life, making the phone call, sending the card, sending the text, offering to pray or pick up the pieces. Help them find spiritual strength. There's one more today. We all need a squad who tells us the truth. This one is tough, but you know you found your squad when they do this. David was pleasing to God, the Bible tells us. He now was king, and the Bible tells us that David was considered a man after God's own heart. What a great thing to be said about you. But then David took his eyes off of God and God's plans, and he put it on what he wanted, which was Bathsheba, a woman. He put the entire kingdom in jeopardy. And he didn't really realize what he had done. He didn't get the gravity of it. He didn't understand how serious it was. And God sent David, one of his squad, to be real with him. His name was Nathan. And Nathan was trusted by David. So Nathan is with David, and he says to him, David, can I tell you a story? And David listens. Once upon a time, there was a wealthy guy, and he had sheep and cattle, more than he could count. And there was a really poor guy, like dirt poor, who had one little lamb. That's all that he had. Almost like a pet to him, which, if you understood that time frame, that actually was a fairly common thing, that they would walk with their lambs. It was a very common thing. They cared very deeply for these animals. And this poor man had one. And so a visitor comes to town, and he needed food. And so the wealthy guy didn't use his own sheep. He didn't use his own lamb. He didn't use his own cattle. But instead, he takes the poor guy's lamb, and he slaughters it and gives it to the traveler for food. And David was mad after Nathan tells this story. He's like, that's the worst thing ever. This wealthy guy should die for that. That is horrible. Why would any... Says, David, You're the man. You're the one who did it. Nathan loved David enough to tell him the truth. David just hadn't seen it. David's response to that in Psalm 51 in the Bible. But it starts with 6 amazing and wonderful words as David says, "Have mercy on me, O God." Nathan was the perfect squad that David needed to help him to know the truth of what he had done. Have you ever had someone say to you, "I don't know if that's a good idea"? Do you understand the impact of those words that you just said? You're hurting your relationship. That's not going to help your marriage. Are you sure you want to go down that road? There will be consequences of that decision. Sometimes telling the truth is something kind of a correction like those, or sometimes it can be something good, where they say to you, "You can do this. I know that you can do this. I see the potential in you. I have faith in you." And then other times it's a word of correction. Proverbs 27 says this, "An open rebuke is better than hidden love. Wounds from a sincere friend are better than many kisses from an enemy." Sometimes we need an open wound, the word of correction from a friend. An open wound, the word of correction from a friend to help us see what we can't see ourselves. Every single one of us, we need a squad. We need a squad who makes us better. We need a squad who helps us find spiritual strength. And we need a squad who tells us the truth. And I just want to linger here for a moment because I know that there are many of us, maybe who have 1 or 2 of those squad members, but maybe not all of them. And maybe you realize today that your squad is missing something. And because your squad is missing something, you may not find or fulfill the destiny that God has for you and the plan that He has for you. So I want to challenge you to seek out your squad, especially at our Dickinson campus. And I know that we've only been going for 3 weeks. This is our 3rd week. But can I tell you that one of the best things you can do to find a great squad is to start serving together. I mean, there are people who just talk a lot and get to know each other by talking, and that's great. But for me, my best friends are the people that I've worked alongside with, that I have served with, that I have attacked projects with, that we've worked together towards a common goal and common camaraderie. I want you to know in Dickinson that in the fall we'll be starting small groups just like we will in Mandan again, and we do that every fall and every winter and spring, and we love to have small groups. There's such important ways that we can connect together. They're designed so you get 10 or 12 or 14 people together and you just connect and learn and do life together. Nothing scary or weird, but just learning and growing in our faith together. But right now, we don't want to wait 3 months. Right now, you can get involved, and there's all kinds of ways that you can take a step and start to get connected right here at our Dickinson campus. You can text into the number. You just text SERVE to the number that they're going to put on the screen, or there's a card there on your chair. You can fill that out, drop it in the basket at the back of the room before you leave, and just let us know that, hey, I'm willing to help, and we'll just converse with you by text or phone and figure out a way that you can be a part and start to serve together with someone else. You see, David needed Samuel to see something in him and help him to realize his full potential. David needed Jonathan when he was down to help him find incredible strength. And David needed Nathan to tell him the truth, to help him realize that it was him. He was the one, and he needed to make some changes in his life. And so today as we close, I'd like to just ask you to pray in 2 ways, 2 simple prayers as we close today. Number 1, pray and ask God to help you to be that friend for someone. Maybe even in this moment, God will show you someone that you can reach out to and you can be that friend. You can help them see their potential. You can help someone find spiritual strength with whatever they're going through and how they're struggling. Or you can help someone to see the truth that they can't see on their own and take a little bit of a risk. That's your first prayer. Pray and ask God to help you be that friend for someone. The second prayer is this, that God would bring a new squad member, a new friend to fill your life and help your squad to be all that it needs to be. Would you pray those two prayers with me right now? Let's pray. God, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for David's example, and especially for the friends in his life, his squad, that helped him to become who you wanted him to be. God, would you help us to be those same people? To be like Nathan, to be like Jonathan, to help others up, to provide spiritual strength when they need it. God, would you even bring to mind right now someone that we can reach out to and we can support, we can help them. Help us, God, to be that kind of a squad for someone. And Lord, the truth is we probably all could use a little improvement in our squads. So Lord, would you help us to develop new friendships and new relationships where we can begin to develop a squad that would honor you and help us to be who you desire us to be. God, thank you so much. Thank you for the way you lead us. Thank you for the squads that you've given us. God, would you help us as we continue to seek out the way you desire us to live with others in a squad. God, thank you for this day, another great day as we serve and worship you. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen. Would you stand as we close in worship together?
Oh, your grace so free washes over me. You have made me new. Now life begins with you. It's your endless love pouring down on us. You have made us new. Now life begins with you. Oh, your grace so free washes over me. You have made me new. Now life begins with you. It's your endless love pouring down on us. You have made us new. Now life begins with you. Oh, we're free, free, forever we're free. Come join the song of all our redeemed. Yes, we're free, free, forever, amen. When death was arrested, my life began. Oh, we're free, free, forever we're free. Come join the song of all our redeemed. Yes, we're free.